Imagine waking up tomorrow, and suddenly, the world's population is reduced to just 100 people. That's it. A planet that was once home to over 7 billion people now only has a tiny fraction of that number. You might think, well, that sounds like an opportunity for a fresh start, right? But in reality, the consequences of such a drastic change would be much more complex and chaotic than you'd expect. The sudden reduction in population would have a ripple effect across every aspect of society, from our day-to-day lives to the very structure of human civilization. So, let's dive into this wild scenario and explore what it would be like if only 100 people were left on Earth. First, let's talk about the immediate aftermath. With a population of just 100 people, the first thing you'd notice is how empty the world would feel. Cities would be abandoned, highways would be eerily silent, and most of the infrastructure we've built over the years would become obsolete. Imagine walking through a deserted street that once bustled with life, only to realize there are only 99 other people left in the world. The shock and sadness would be overwhelming. The sudden loss of so many lives would leave a gaping hole in the world, both emotionally and physically. Your daily routines would be completely disrupted. The sense of community, the hustle and bustle of everyday life, all of it would disappear. But here's the thing. With just 100 people, society would have to rebuild itself from the ground up. You'd probably find yourself asking, how do we even begin to form a new world? The first priority would be survival. With so few people, the ability to produce food, water, and shelter would become the most important focus. The group would need to band together, working to grow crops, find clean water sources, and build basic infrastructure to sustain life. Without the large-scale systems that we rely on today, the group would have to take on all the roles that society once provided, from healthcare to farming to construction. It would be an overwhelming challenge, and it would require a level of cooperation and resourcefulness we've never needed before. Now, think about the long-term consequences. If the world's population was reduced to only 100 people, reproduction would become a major concern. With such a small gene pool, genetic diversity would be severely limited, which could lead to all sorts of issues down the road. Genetic diseases might spread more quickly, and the population could experience problems like inbreeding if the group remained isolated for too long. This would make it incredibly difficult to rebuild and sustain future generations. The survival of humanity would depend on how well the remaining people could manage reproduction and genetic health, making every birth and every decision about who partners with whom an incredibly delicate matter. In terms of governance, with only 100 people, the structure of leadership would likely change dramatically. Democracy as we know it might not be practical anymore. Everyone might have to come together to form a cooperative system where decisions are made by consensus, or perhaps the group would split into smaller factions, each with its own leader and set of rules. With such a small population, the dynamics of power could shift quickly, leading to potential conflicts and struggles for control. There's always the risk that someone might try to take advantage of the situation, using their position of power to manipulate or control others. In a world where resources are limited, power dynamics could become dangerously unstable, and the group would have to constantly navigate these tensions to avoid chaos. The environment, too, would be impacted. With so few people around, pollution levels would decrease dramatically. There would be far less waste, fewer cars on the road, and less demand for industrial production. In a sense, the planet could begin to heal itself from the environmental damage caused by overpopulation. However, this would come with its own set of challenges. With so few people left, maintaining a balance between human activity and the natural world would be difficult. For example, if the remaining population overhunted or overfarmed, it could lead to the depletion of resources even faster, and the delicate ecosystem might collapse under the weight of these new pressures. On a more personal level, imagine the emotional toll that would come with living in such a drastically reduced world. The loneliness would be palpable. With only 99 other people around, the bonds you form with others would become even more significant. But at the same time, you might start to feel the weight of living in such a small community, where everyone knows everyone else's business, and privacy would become almost non-existent. Friendships and relationships would likely become even more intense, as people would be forced to rely on one another for companionship and emotional support. But on the flip side, conflicts could also be more personal and intense, as there would be nowhere to hide from the tensions that inevitably arise when you're living in such close quarters with so few people. Culturally, the world would experience a dramatic shift. With only 100 people left, cultural traditions, arts, and entertainment would all be influenced by the new, limited community. Without the vast diversity of experiences, ideas, and backgrounds that once shaped human culture, the remaining people would have to find ways to preserve the best parts of their past while adapting to their new reality. History would be rewritten, not by a vast population of storytellers and record keepers, but by a small group of survivors trying to hold onto fragments of the old world. These 100 people would be the last guardians of humanity's culture and knowledge, tasked with keeping the flame of civilization alive. But how would they do it? And would they be able to do it without losing touch with what made the world so diverse and rich before? Looking at the bigger picture, the global implications of having only 100 people left would be immense. Every decision would have a huge impact on the future of humanity. How would they deal with the challenges of rebuilding civilization? How would they ensure that they don't make the same mistakes that led to the downfall of the previous world? The choices they make would shape the future of the planet for generations to come. And while they would have the opportunity to build a new world, it's also likely that they would face intense pressure to rebuild what was lost, which might lead to a desire to repeat past mistakes rather than forge a completely new path. In the end, if the world's population was reduced to just 100 people, it would be a world full of challenges, opportunities, and intense emotional struggles. It would force humanity to confront the fragility of civilization and the importance of cooperation and resilience. But it would also be a world that holds the potential for a fresh start, a world where the survivors would have to rewrite the rules of society and find new ways to live together. So, what do you think? Would the remaining 100 people be able to rebuild a new world, or would the challenges be too great to overcome? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more wild what-if scenarios here at What If Factory. Until next time, let's hope we never have to find out what it's like to be among the last 100.